I hope she likes my moves.
Oh God, your diamonds don't dance like this. You ain't got no soldiers taking no.
Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 4, aptly named Keep Calm and Freak Out. Today, there's a lot of stuff I really want to go over today. I've worked really hard on this video. It's really a little bit of forensic work of the on the death of the American sanity. Why does the American dream feel like a waking nightmare? I had asked ChatGPT to name off every major traumatic event that has had terrible effects on the American psyche since January 2020 up until December of 2024. So I want to go over that list. It's amazing to think of how much stuff we've gone through compared to, I thought it was bad before, but like 2016 to 2020, I thought it couldn't get any worse. 2020 to now.
So, back to it.
And I want to talk about fear, just fear moving forward. And we're going to use a patented system, real easy to identify what you're afraid of. It's a five-finger fear identification system treatment. So if you're into fisting, ride the bow, yeah! Stay tuned for that. And then at the end of the video, I want to go over just a little bit of video advice from another channel in regards to prepping, not like doomsday prepping, but we're kind of there. Prepping and just mentally preparing for what may be coming, because it feels like the world's becoming a little unglued. And I know that especially here in America, I know that it's probably pretty bad. I know that it's bad all around the world. But here in America, I can only speak from my vantage point, from my seat, and it feels nuts. This next video is kind of how I'm feeling right now.
Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. Raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. We're very, very pissed off.
Okay, so like I said earlier, I asked ChatGPT to name off every major event, news event, that had happened since January 2020. Just since then, just the past 4 years. To name off every major event. And my goal in this was to kind of track the trauma, like the psychological, just trying to figure out what has happened. Why does it feel so bad? Why does it feel so wrong right now? Why does it feel like something bad is about to happen? Why has it felt like that for the past several years? It feels a little crazy. It goes from bad to worse really, really fast. So anyway, I asked ChatGPT to name off all these events. And starting in January 2020, of course, you all know what happened then. It was the COVID-19 pandemic. The spread of the virus. I know that it wasn't formally announced until like March 13th, or was declared. But leading up to it, I don't know if you even remember going into the COVID thing, we were just getting over the crazy circus of the impeachment process. They were trying to impeach Trump. And right when that ended, like in November, December of 2019, and then all of a sudden, you started hearing on the news this thing coming from China, that there's this virus that's unknown and novel that kept being thrown around. Corona, that was the big word that was starting from there. So starting in January 2020, it started being put in your face. And then of course you all know January to February, then March. And then it was like, in March of 2020, I was working in Denver, and I was a gray worker, which was a construction worker, they were keeping occupations going to kind of keep some progress going. And I remember driving through downtown Denver, where like just a few weeks before I was sitting in traffic, and now I was driving through downtown Denver at like 85 miles an hour, which was not. I actually had a cop tell me to slow down, but there was no one on the roads. I mean, it was like a ghost town. And there were times when I took flights from Denver to Atlanta, and there was no one on the plane or the train. It was really weird. Felt very surreal. I remember during the onset, it felt kind of nightmarish. It was one of those things that you just went along with it because what are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to do? It's just something that's happening. Okay, so right as COVID's going, then you have something looming on the horizon there. Everyone knew at this point that the 2020 election was about to happen. And with the 2020 election, the propaganda and it just kind of felt like the Wild West. Anyone could say anything. I don't ever remember it getting that nuts. We knew that the elections were going to be a doozy. I mean, they tried to impeach Trump like 2 times, and it seemed like the Democratic federal side of our government was going to get what they wanted. Anyway, but leading up to the elections there, we had the murder of George Floyd, he was choked to death. If you can remember, I Can't Breathe, and the Black Lives Matter and all that stuff, that was pretty much already established going into that, because we had a lot of protests. I don't know if anyone really remembers where it kind of started for me, where I noticed the first protest was Trayvon Martin in Florida, 2012. There was huge backlash from that. And that seemed like a circus. And little did I know that with each case that came up, it was going to get crazier and crazier. So we had this racial injustice and the rise of the Black Lives Matter, even though, like I said, it was already established. We had plenty of riots leading up to that. I'm just kind of going off of what ChatGPT said. And we had nationwide civil protests. I don't know if you remember, people were out in the streets, and it was nuts. It felt like a more violent version of the Occupy Wall Street type stuff. Anyway, the tension that put on the American public was extreme, I feel. I feel like it was an extreme thing that was happening there. And then, still going in 2020, what ChatGPT was saying, we had the California wildfires in 2020, not 2024 ones, not the ones that are burning right now. 2020, crazy wildfires that were happening, and it felt apocalyptic. And then all those fires were record breaking across the West Coast. Also in 2020, the economic recession. You had high unemployment rates and financial instability due to the pandemic. The people were just getting used to it. People were just getting laid off. People were told not to come into work, and then more or less switching over to remote employment. But some people didn't make it. I mean, some of their jobs, you can't remote do a, if you're like a carpenter or something like that, you can't remote work. So the economic recession was kind of already picking up, and it was in full swing then. But the thing that had a tremendous effect on me psychologically was that, and little did I know that it would be really hammered in later on. But little did I know that was the start for me when everyone was telling me everything is fine. There's no economic recession. And it was so in my face. And I didn't say anything. I think like most Americans, or most people, I assume, what are you going to do? I got work tomorrow. I got kids. I got bills. And you don't have enough money. All that you know is that you don't have enough money at the end of the month to pay your bills. But then you click on the news and everyone's telling you everything's fine. We're doing better than ever. Just like how just recently in December of 2024, they're announcing like huge job additions to the economy. And this is like the umpteenth time that they've done that. I'm not seeing it. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong industry or whatever, but it feels like we were in a recession. And it started in 2020. Probably started before then. Okay. There's other things that I probably missed in 2020. I know that there was things. 2020 was a hard year. 2021. Let's just start with something easy. The Capitol riots. Okay, you had on January 6, 2021, from how I remember it, is that the election felt charged, just like all elections have been feeling since, I don't know, the 90s, but I mean, I don't know. But this election was so charged, and there was a lot of people that just couldn't believe that Biden had won. They just could not accept that, because you had people that were like, I see evidence of this landslide victory. Trump is the incumbent in 2021 or in 2020. He's the incumbent. And most incumbents win again. And he was popular. The only people he wasn't popular with, from my opinion, was the federal government. Federal government and Democrats, they hated him. They still do. But it seemed like he was popular. And then you had the highest like voting numbers and things that had ever happened. The most Democrats that had ever voted before. And something felt weird. But I wasn't bothered enough to go to DC and protest anything. I wasn't motivated enough. All I was thinking about at the time, which was money. I was thinking, how am I going to pay my bills? That's all I really cared about. And so while people are struggling with their bills and struggling with fighting people at Target over wearing a mask or not, you have this election, nonstop barrage of coverage, and it led to the riots there. I thought something was interesting when I was asking ChatGPT to make this list for me. It would make the list, give me the dates and all, some key information, but then it would say like the baseline of what had happened. And I thought it was interesting that ChatGPT had said, Capitol riot, storming of the U.S. Capitol, threatening democracy and safety. And I don't know. It's weird that an AI, the word threatening democracy seems more like a human opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive, but that seems weird. So if there's a human that has placed that filter on an AI, you're going to create issues for yourself down the road with that AI. Okay, because you need to put true data and just let the AI do its thing. I feel like there's probably been some filters that may have been added, and I don't like that. But then again, that's just my opinion, my American experience. Okay, next thing, Delta variant surge. So people were already uneasy about COVID, the coronavirus. People were kind of enjoying being in their homes. But by the time it got to 2021, people were ready to get back out again. You know, they're ready to go and do something. And it felt like anytime anything picked back up, people started going back to their jobs and trying to move on with their life. And then all of a sudden you're getting blasted with this constant coverage of a Delta variant. And you're not just coverage, you're seeing like neighbors and people getting sick. I got COVID, I'm, whatever. And then I was working with a guy that he had gotten COVID. He said it was the worst thing that had ever happened to him, that it was that he almost died, that his buddy that was living with his roommate, living with him in his house at the time, basically got in one spot and struggled to breathe for like 3 days and thought he was going to die. And he finally left that spot. And, but my friend, I didn't see him for like 2 weeks. He got this Delta thing and he showed back up and he had lost like 50 pounds. It was crazy. So that was seeing him during this time was probably the first time I'd ever taken COVID really serious, because up until now I was just hearing reports of people dying in hospitals and things like that. That people were actually in fact dying from this virus, but until it's like personal, there was leading up to all this, you had all the impeachment propaganda, and then you had all the election propaganda, and then you had the onset of COVID propaganda, and why we at that point when the COVID had first started, there was no vaccine. Nobody was angry about vaccines yet. Nobody cared. It was, what is social distancing? It was the basics of dealing with a novel virus. You had a lot of renewal of concerns with people because it felt like just as everyone was trying to get back up, we were being knocked back down. And it wasn't just that, it was a lot of people were finding out, oh, this thing can mutate. This virus, this COVID virus, it's not going to stay one thing. And people were starting to find out that no, it can mutate into other things. It could be more severe and less infectious, or it could be more infectious and less severe, or it could be, no one really knew what was going on, but people started taking it more serious during that. That was additional strain on the brain. In 2021, there was a lot of key events that happened in 2021. I'm just going over what the ones that ChatGPT had said. The Afghanistan withdrawal. Okay, so this was not becoming of our country, in my opinion. I can say that I have been an American my whole life, and it seemed weird to invest so much time in some place and convince so many people and then pull out in such a chaotic way. Knowing, and then the world watched is the thing that we had gone there to fight, the Taliban, take over immediately. We went in, we created a vacuum of power for years, and then we just pulled out, and then the people that were fighting came in and took the position. That seems weird to me. That's like spending a long time building a house only to let your enemy move in at the end. So, and also I think that the Afghanistan withdrawal, it was short-lived, but there was crazy video coverage and news coverage of this withdrawal. It's a lot of it. It's kind of difficult to find now, not like how it used to be, but it was chaotic. Okay, so moving on to 2022. 2022, biggest thing that really shook the year. I think in January, everyone was kind of waiting for some big thing to happen. Also, there was some news coverage. But then, February 2022, till now, ongoing thing, there was Russia's invasion of Ukraine. As soon as it started, the one thing that the world was afraid of, which was war. Nobody wanted a war. We were dealing with a virus, and then there was along came this. I don't know if Russia saw it as it was just something that was on the table, as an opportunity to finally get, you know, Ukraine while everyone was kind of locked down. Again, we were still locked down in 2022. Or if it was just some timetable of where, you know, Russia and Putin were, you know, they're having to deal, Russia's dealing with the United Nations, and they at the United Nations, it's not, it operates like it's its own country, even though it's like a coalition of countries, but it seems like it has its own rules and it places its own expectations. I don't know, but it tells people what to do. UN's a little bit, I don't know if some people might call it efficient, some people might call it a bully. I don't care. But the UN and Russia do not get along, and I don't know if it was just time that Russia had been saying for so long, look, we're going to do this. You keep pushing this agenda, the UN trying to push this agenda on us, then we're going to move forward. We can't help that it happened in a pandemic. Or, on the other hand, Russia moved in because of the pandemic, because they're like, oh, okay, everyone's docked. You know, everyone else's arsenal is docked right now because of this, so now's our chance. Okay, and then in 2022, I have to admit, I am a little jaded, and this sounds really bad. And this is I don't know what the long-term psychological trauma or what this does to a person. But I remember the first school shooting that really got my attention. And that was April 1999, Columbine. Crazy. That I remember even back then, I couldn't figure out, why would someone do this? Why would you do this? Why this is taking something way too far. And it seemed like extreme behavior to me at the time. That this was like a rogue. This was like, these boys were like just this one-off thing. And it just was a whatever. But then there was another one. And then there was another one. In a school, sometimes in a mall, restaurant, stuff like that. And another one. And it felt tense. But I would say that the out of all the mass shootings, the one that had affected me the most, and I remember at the time I was the guitarist for a major church in Atlanta at the time, and we just got done playing a night, I forget, it was some event, and all of a sudden everyone's looking at their phones and they're talking about this thing that had just happened, and I actually looked at my phone to see what times The Dark Knight Rises plays, because I was going to go after we had played that conference. I was going to go see The Dark Knight Rises. So obviously I get on Google, type in Dark Knight Rises, boom, Aurora, Colorado. And it was this guy that had walked in when all these people were excited to see this movie, and he did awful things. This was the mass shooting that, as an American, got my attention. Because at that moment, I didn't have to talk to anybody about it. I didn't feel like going out anywhere. I didn't want to go to the movies. I know that it happened over in another state. I was in Georgia at the time. I know that it happened in another state. But I didn't go to the movies that night. Because I started thinking, and this was the feeling that led till now of why the American reality feels like a waking nightmare. It was when the first time that I felt like things were becoming a little unglued, and I'm like, okay, what's wrong with people? Something's happening. Are people going nuts? Are people going? What's happening? That was the only thing. It was just kind of confusion. What's happening? And now I'm beginning to pull back. Okay, so on the Chat GPT, they said the big event was the Uvalde, the Texas school shooting in May of 2022. And I remember hearing about it. I remember the number at some point with the news and the mass shootings and stuff. At some point, it was like I stopped hearing people's names, the victims, and I started hearing numbers. And it was like if there was another shooting, it was like, how high were the numbers? And unfortunately, the Uvalde school shooting was high numbers, and it got my attention. Just like that nightclub in Orlando, and then there was that nightclub in Colorado Springs. The numbers were so high that it was, unfortunately, I think it was like dehumanized. In a way, the numbers were so high that it actually dehumanized the victims because it turned them into which number was it. And that's crazy unfortunate. So this school shooting was just another reminder that America was becoming unglued psychologically. Something was wrong. Something keeps happening over and over again. You had a lot of debate at the time, and people were saying, oh, we know what's wrong. Take away the guns. And even me, I thought, that's not going to fix anything. That's going to kind of bottleneck the guns to certain groups that want them the most. And the people that want to go do these horrible things, they're the ones who want them the most. I don't think the guns are the problem. I think it's the psychological I don't even know what you would call it. It doesn't seem enough to call gun violence and the mass shootings that happen in America. It doesn't seem right to call them a phenomenon because they happen so often that they're not a phenomenon. They're not a one-off. They're like part of, we have kind of established ourselves that we have these outliers in our own society that keep doing these things. And because they happen so regularly, and the fact that the gun debate is not fixing it, taking away guns, that the people that have guns are never going to give them up. And the people that want to hurt people will do anything to get guns. So the problem is not the guns. The problem is the psyche of our outliers. How bad have we really stepped over people this much that our outliers are taking out our children, in their schools and movie theaters and grocery stores and I don't know, just Google it. Moving on. Then in June 2022, at the time, I don't remember. I know for a lot of people, this was like a real big thing. It still is. It's a big thing. But the Roe v. Wade overturn. So with the Roe v. Wade overturn, you had a Supreme Court decision sparking national protests and debates on women's rights. And so you have, this is such a weird topic for me to speak on because all right, I'll speak of it from my perspective. There have been times in my life where I have condoned, I've condoned abortions. And a lot of people won't say that, but I mean, there are certain circumstances where I feel like it's necessary. And I feel like in those circumstances, it's the obvious circumstances. And then there have been times in my life where I condemn it, where I'm saying, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that like a baby can get to like 5 months in utero and just like that? And the reason why I would condemn it is because over the past 20 years of my life, I've explored, what are we? Is there a ghost in there? Is there someone in here? Are we just animals, or like what are we? And just the research and stuff that I'll probably cover in another episode is that, yeah, we're spirit. We're spirit and body. This is the same thing. Our bodies are a reflection of our spirits, but our spirits are the immortal part of us. Our bodies are the mortal part of us, and they're one-shot deals. Now, as far as the treasure and the memories and stuff that you can store up in your one-shot life, but it will always go on. Everything that you are in this life goes on. There's an attachment between the spirit and the body. And I believe that when you get, I think you're cutting off a spirit from its body. And if the body's obviously going to be completely out of circumstance, can't control it, wrecked, if the body's wrecked, I don't think you're hurting the ghost by severing it. But I think that there's been probably a lot of healthy children that have been aborted. So I don't know. My final response on that is there's times in my life I've condemned it. Sometimes I've condoned it. I'm just a guy. But I know that it stresses, even now, look at me, even talking about it. This is stressful. In these debates, this type of stuff, it's been so jammed in your face and down your throat, no matter what you're debating about, that you become exhausted and you lose motivation to even engage anymore because it's too much. So anyway, 2022, you had that. Then to kind of really put a bow on 2022, in September, you had a catastrophic hurricane hitting Florida, causing widespread destruction. Hurricane Ian. I don't remember it either. I don't remember hurricane. I'm sure a lot of people do. I don't remember it. I feel like there's been so many hurricanes. Hurricane Michael, and even going back to like Sandy, and obviously, you know, some of the big, but it seems like we have major hurricane things happening so often. And it's not just us. There's, on the other side of the world, they call them typhoons. They're having a crazy amount of super typhoons. And we're having an amount of major hurricanes. So there's so many that are happening and so often that you have one major news cycle after another when it's hurricane season. So ChatGPT thought Hurricane Ian was something that had a profound psychological effect on the American psyche. Moving on to 2023. Now, ChatGPT didn't say this, but I'm going to say it. The way 2023 started off for me as far as news cycles was the Miami Mall incident. And I'm still somewhat confused about this. If you don't know about the Miami Mall incident, it was like supposedly like portals or something opened up at this public space, and beings walked out. And the only news footage that you can get of this is just the fact that like 100 cop cars showed up to the thing. Like 100 cop cars showed up to this mall for this thing. And the public response that the police department put out at the time was that, what was it? That some kids were shooting off fireworks or, you know, something like that. But it seemed weird. Why would you send 100 cop cars for that? And then now with AI, it's hard to tell what's a video that someone made of that event. Anyway, the Miami Mall incident stressed me out because it gave me this feeling like something's coming from space, but I don't think it's space. I think it's like from here, or it's like dimensional or something. But I still feel that way. And that adds to the tension. That adds to the waking nightmare. I feel like something's coming. So the Miami Mall incident had a profound effect on me. Back to ChatGPT. Starting off, the economic uncertainty and inflation. Rising prices and housing challenges affecting daily life. I can honestly say I had no housing. I'm like living with family in 2023. I mean, I don't know. I'm still living with family. I don't know what's happening, but our economy does not feel like how it felt before. This is something. I think in the same way that like communism collapsed in the 90s, that This is what it looks like when capitalism collapses. You're still going to have governance, you're still going to have this, but you have capitalists. And capitalism is just essentially an idea. It's a sequence of thinking and doing a certain way, and just like communism, and it's an idea. It's something you can put on paper, but then you make it real by, in a way, group believing. Anyway, I feel like that idea, I don't know if it's capitalism just couldn't keep up with the times, but it has turned us into, capitalism in a way has turned us into predators. That we're so after that dollar that we will lessen ourselves, or we will hurt someone else, or we will work a job that we hate our entire lives, or we will betray our values for a dollar. So 2023, it felt like it was getting more widespread. ChatGPT brought it up. 2023, I remember I was flat broke. Completely flat broke. Unemployed. Majorly depressed. And the hum then is still the hum now. And the hum is, what am I going to do for money? What am I going to do to pay people money? Where am I going to get the money to pay someone? And I'm tired of feeling that way so much. I in a way, I just want a new system, because this system feels like it's not working. And it's crazy stressful. So 2023, economic uncertainty, inflation. The next thing was a big event that ChatGPT said had an effect on us, was the Maui wildfires. And there was so much just like what's going on now with the California wildfires, is that there's so much strangeness around it, where you happen to see on the island of Maui, you happen to see people buying up land. This is leading up to August 2023. There was already some weirdness happening on the island as far as just who was buying things. But then you had this fire, and you had this beautiful town of Lahaina. The only place in Hawaii I've ever seen. That was the first place when I went. I've only been to Maui. I've never been to any of the other islands of Hawaii. I went to Maui for the first time in like 2003, and we went to Lahaina. So it's a beautiful town. It was a beautiful city. I'm sure it's going to be built back, and I'm sure it's, but people were starting to watch this video coverage of these fires. And then there was all this other strangeness with like, why is blue not melting? And then the very next day after the fires had started, and then there was some confusion with like letting people know, which is weird, because there was so much confusion with like the emergency broadcast system and how people were being told things in the event of an emergency happening right there for them. There was some sort of major system failure with that. That seems strange. The other thing with the Maui fires was like the fire chief was fired, and or he quit. I forget what the confusion was. I just remember that other services and other departments within like the Hawaii government, such as the emergency management department, and then of course you had FEMA and all this other stuff, but then just their local services, they were having to step up because nobody really knew what was happening. Maui was burning, and everyone was watching it, and everyone already had this sense of like the economy's bad, all this. And anyway, the mass shootings epidemic, already covered a lot of that, but continued rise in 2023 with mass shootings. And there was so many. I can't even, I may have named one off already. I mean, right now it just, like I said, I've been a little desensitized. That's concerning. That's concerning that I can't remember which shootings happened, in 2023. So here's the next one. And this is what ChatGPT said. And this is what is happening now in 2025, big time. And ChatGPT said AI and job automation anxiety, growing concerns over the future of work and societal shifts due to artificial intelligence. And I would agree with that. I started getting a little obsessed with AI in 2023. I started watching it. I couldn't believe that even the language models, that you could just ask any question. I was very curious about AI in 2023, but it didn't take me very long to understand, okay, so there's a lot of people that aren't going to be needed anymore because so what are we going to do? And that was the beginning of that anxiety hum of what is the world, what is society going to look like? What are our jobs going to look like? Do I need to get another job in the same field that I've been working, or do I need to wait and see what is like? As you can see, it's stressful just thinking about it. Okay, so 2024, crisis in the Middle East. That was nonstop coverage, still ongoing, but it was like the two people, as far as me as an American, this was talking about like Hezbollah and Israel, and at the time there was so much going on. Again, keep track of what we've done so far. Is like it started off with COVID, and then all those other things I mentioned, and then it was like the two people in the world that we did not want to see fight. All of a sudden, one of them's launching rockets into the city of the one people that were like, okay, no one's going to be able to control Israel. Like no one's going to be able, they don't listen to other countries or anything like that. Even if like say America's giving them military might, and then America's like, hey, just take it easy for like 10 days. Israel's like, we'll do whatever we want. And that's just kind of how it's always been. So the two people in the world are fighting. And then we had the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And now right around, it was this past year, 2024, I was like, okay, World War III feels like it's getting here. Like, I don't know in the history books who the players are going to read off, but 2024, I don't know if 2024 we're going to start counting this as the beginning of World War III, and I don't know what it's going to look like. And it's real concern. This stresses me out. Is that our world is starting to fight one another right when AI is showing up. What? How? Are you kidding me? Like our intelligence compared to what AI is about to be in the next year, it's like throwing a loaded gun into a kindergartner room. Like we don't know what we're looking at, and we're really gonna hurt ourselves. So it's really concerning that Israel's at war, Russia's at war, America's at war. There's talking about civil war, war. And AI's coming to take our jobs. This is freaking stressful. Anyway, escalation of violence in Gaza and Israel leading to global tensions. No crap. This one was what ChatGPT, for 2024, the climate crisis escalation. This is what ChatGPT said. Extreme weather events becoming more frequent and severe. Okay, that was already happening. So I don't know why it was like bringing it up in 2024, but the fact that I kind of noticed a filter earlier where it was talking about the J6 stuff, and it was talking about threatening democracy. I was like, well, that feels like a very human thing to say. The fact that ChatGPT threw up climate crisis escalation in 2024 when we all know that it's been going on for a long time. However, yeah, it's getting way more extreme. We just had a hurricane come from the Gulf of Mexico to the mountains. What? So yeah, climate crisis escalation. It's hard to believe what we're witnessing here. But it's already been a low hum in the background, stress hum. The biggest stressor of 2024, ChatGPT said it. The elections and political tensions. The rising division ahead of the U.S. presidential election. How freaking stressful was that election? The amount of craziness and like just insane people with social media saying anything they want, and not just social media, not just like crazy people with social media, but you had really unhinged journalists printing articles that didn't really match how they've written before. You had someone that would write a certain way, but then it got to the election and it seemed really scripted. To me, the stress of the 2024 presidential election, it felt like our government was either at full contamination or we're like in the final stages before our government the American government was about to be contaminated. And I'm not saying, I don't know who the contaminants are, but I feel like maybe foreign countries. I mean, when you have the resources, there's nothing that you can't do. And all it would take is a foreign agent that, I don't know, war is not always waged with guns and bullets. In upcoming videos, I want to talk about this, but we have been at economic war. We've been at, I don't know when the year started, but we have had I think that time will show that we're under attack right now. America is under attack. Someone is attacking us economically, a foreign thing. There's political warfare. And then you're also seeing lawfare, which was being used on Trump. It doesn't matter who someone is. You can arrest them and charge them and deem them guilty. Countries have been doing it for centuries. You can prosecute anyone and convict them, and then tell everybody that that's what it was. If you have the resources, you can. Unfortunately, you could probably. There's no one that you can't take out and change history if you had the resources. But as far as just social psychology, this 2024 elections really did a number, because the biggest war that occurred in 2024 was the propaganda warfare that was waged on its own people. And now we're messed up because we have been inundated with insanity. And then when we ask questions about it, we are either met with some sort of punishment, prosecution, or worse yet is the fact that no one will give us any answers about anything.
Hello there, I'm Nicholas Brahan, and welcome to Brahan's Books. Today, I'm going to be interviewing young Stephen Berlew about his newest book, Willows. So Stephen, what was the inspiration? Stephen, answer the question. Answer the question, Stephen. Stephen, answer the question. Answer it, Stephen. Answer the question, Stephen. Answer the question, Stephen. Stephen! Stephen, answer the question. Stephen! Stephen! Answer the question, Stephen! Stephen! Stephen, answer the question! Answer it, Stephen! Stephen! Stephen. Stephen. Answer the question, Stephen. Answer it, Stephen! Stephen! Stephen. 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 Answer the question, Stephen. Well, that's all the time we have for you today. And don't forget to pick up Stephen Berleu's Willows at your local bookstore. We'll see you next time. But until then, happy reading.
The drones are a perfect example of that. But our government is so frustrating to get answers out of. I don't even want to go into any more of the election. Instead of the election stuff, I'd rather just kind of do this. Okay, so also in 2024, the events that weren't listed on this list that I felt added to my stress was the Hurricane Helene thing. The stress thing was, I know that those folks up there are tough, and I know that there was crazy, but the follow-up that occurred right after Hurricane Helene up in Asheville in North Carolina, all through there, all the way up from the coast, all that damage. The follow-up, the 24 hours on, they're not being helped. In fact, I believe it was like a week or so ago that people with no homes were evicted from their hotel rooms. Now, I've heard things about companies and foundations coming in and rehousing people at other hotels. But they're evicting people. Where are they supposed to go? It's freezing. It's freezing up in the mountains. It's cold in Georgia. And I can't imagine how cold it is up in the mountains, because out over here on the East Coast, you have so much humidity in the air that when it gets cold, you feel it in your bones. Something in ChatGPT, which was weird that it didn't even mention this, was the immigration wave. I know that some people will try to tack that into like the presidential election like it was some sort of No. This is like a crazy thing that has happened. The amount of people that have come into this country from all over the world is insane. We're going to see, we have to see something new. Either, I don't know if Trump follows through on his promises or what, but I don't know what this is supposed to look like. Like, how we got all these people in here so fast. How are we supposed to get them out fast? And why would they go? And I say they're other people. I'm not saying they is like they're another nationality, but I'm saying the world works this way. We've all agreed on borders. America's like, this is our room. This is your room. We're all in agreement about that. But then you have a flood of people coming from this room and this room and this room and this room. When the time comes to say, all right, everyone back to your room, I have no problem with like the book banning bothered me. Just people going completely nuts over books, and books are who we are. That's who we are. And the book banning that was going on all over the country, that was crazy stressful. I don't know why it bothered me, but it stressed me out. And but obviously another thing that was real big was the fact that Biden kept promising like college debt relief to people and then pulling back on it. Okay, so I know what it's like to have a ton of debt. When you feel like you're like close to having this debt resolved and then it changes, it's crazy. I think I'm gonna have to make a part 2 to this video, because even right now it's crazy long. I'll try to edit it down as much as I can, but this will be episode 4, part 1, and I don't know, we'll call this a new thing. I'm learning everything as I go. I'm learning about sound, I'm learning about editing, I'm learning about lighting. I cringe watching myself in these videos. I'm figuring it out. I've just realized I'm just gonna get on here and just talk and do my stuff, and I don't know. Part 2.
On God, your diamonds don't dance like this. You ain't got no soldiers taking no chance like this. On God, there ain't nobody driller than this. Go anywhere around where nobody realer than this.